Please welcome panelists Jamil Alexander, Elizabeth Grant, Robert Dorr, Ron Haskin, and our moderator, Tanzina Vega.
Hello again, and thank you. The organizers of this event made it very simple for me I have a sprained ankle, so they didn't want me to have to get up and down, which is why I might explain why I was sitting while the rest of our illustrious panel has come on stage. Thank you all for being here this morning. As a journalist, I get pitched reports all the time, and often they come with sort of a point of view, if you will. How is it that AEI and Brookings were able to produce a bipartisan report on such a difficult and contentious and important issue today?
The first thing is that our group followed the fundamental idea of social science to use evidence and apply that to programs like we hope many of the young people in the audience are a part of, plus the ancient art of compromise. Virtually out of style in Washington, D.C.
I was going to say, are we even at that point? Is that even?
I'll get to that in a minute, but that's how we did it. So it's 16 social scientists, 8 on the left, 8 on the right, all very prominent, very well known, established reputations. We met 5 times in Washington, D.C. or New York City for a full day each time. Money provided by Casey and Ford, and we released the report in December of last year. We made proposals in 3 areas that we think are critical, and without action in all 3 areas, we're not going to make progress. And I'm very pleased to say all 3 of these areas are really the guideposts of the Opportunity Nations report. The 3 areas, logically enough, are improving family life, increasing wages and employment, and strengthening education. So there's a great correspondence between the recommendations that we made and the recommendations that are made by Opportunity Nation, and we truly believe, and so did 16 prominent social scientists who are basing their conclusions on data, believe the same thing. So I'd like to just mention one thing in particular, because this audience may be particularly likely to make a mistake in this area, and that's pregnancy outside marriage, and especially among teenagers. This is a problem we've made the most progress with of almost any social problem. People don't understand this, but teen pregnancy rates have declined about 60% since 1991, decline in every year among every group. So we've really made tremendous progress, and we have very good ideas in the report about how we can make more progress. So this is an extremely important message, and think about why we're able to do it. Big agreement on the values. Even kids, if we surveyed kids, young people, and said, is it a good idea to get pregnant before you're married and outside marriage? About 80% say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should wait at least till your education's complete.
I grew up in an era of babies having babies.
Well, we still have it, but much
I mean,
less.
it was an epidemic back in the 90s. So
yeah, absolutely.
This is pretty interesting.
It's still very big, but we're making a lot of progress. That's the point. And we have very good ideas for how to make more progress. And then Robert's going to talk about one more recommendation. Let me just say one last thing, and that is I think there are 3 essential ingredients. These are very much like what Congressman Gibson said, of how you produce bipartisan legislation. I'm now coming to your point. The first thing is you have to have people of goodwill. And we have a lot of people in Congress who are way more interested in their partisan perspective than they are in goodwill. So goodwill, we started with 16 people. We had all different kind of beliefs, but we had goodwill. Second, go with the evidence. Members of Congress say that all the time, but they don't do it. And evidence can really guide us in this area. Many of the recommendations of Opportunity Nation, we have very good evidence that they would work if they're aggressively implemented. And finally, the filthy word in Washington, compromise. You cannot get the deals unless both sides compromise. And that was one remarkable thing and a joy of being a member of this group, was that both sides compromise. So for example, the right wanted to really emphasize marriage, the left wasn't interested in that, but the left wanted minimum wage, and we traded them off. And another example is we wanted mandatory work requirements in federal programs, which the left did not want, but they said if you will guarantee a job, and no one can lose their benefits unless they're offered a job. So we compromised there. There were many other things like that. So those are the three keys.
Yeah, so I would agree with everything that Ron said. We were on this group together. By the way, I want to say how glad I am to be back in New York. For 7 years, I was the Commissioner of Social Services for Michael Bloomberg before I went to AEI. And New York is just the greatest city in the world, and I'm glad to be here. But the thing that was important was that we focused on two issues that both right and left could agree wholeheartedly on, that sometimes are hard to talk about. And one of them is family. That we all agreed, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, that children, notwithstanding great efforts by single parents who do wonderful things all the time, really do better when they have two parents involved in their lives, committed for the long haul. And we weren't afraid to say that and to talk about it and ask President Obama to talk more about it and set the wonderful example that he does set. And that was important to all of us, but it was particularly important to the people who come from the more Republican perspective, because family and responsibility is very part of their basic beliefs, and the willingness on the part of our more liberal participants to acknowledge that that was important was extremely important. And that's what coming together is about. It's seeing the world from the perspective of your potential political adversary and understanding where they're coming from. And the second has to do with work. Some of our social benefit programs provide assistance, but they don't encourage employment strongly enough. We have a lot of people on food stamps, for instance, who are able-bodied adults, but the food stamp program, and I was chair of the National Hunger Commission as well, and we went around and talked to recipients of SNAP, and they said, great program to get me an EBT card and help me afford groceries, not so great at helping me get a job. And so our group, liberals and conservatives, came together on that concept, that work expectation, that work efforts on parts of programs providing assistance, that it's a reciprocal responsibility. The government or various forms of places that provide assistance, but in return, the receiver also has responsibility. And the group was clear on that, emphatic. And I think that was really, really important. And as we go forward in the next administration, it's going to be important for Democrats and Republicans to see the world from the perspective of the other side and acknowledge the truths in some of what they're saying and allow victories for both sides. So Republicans need to hear family, they need to hear work. Democrats want to hear more assistance, more opportunity, more government involvement. I think you can do both.
And those things, I think, for a lot of people are intimately connected, right? You cannot have stronger families if you don't have jobs.
They are connected, and that's very much in the report. We make it very clear. 3 spheres in life: employment or work, family, education. That's where a lot of this all happens. And if you read the report, and I strongly urge you to go to either the Brookings website or the AEI website, get a copy of the report. Lots of other people are building on it, and it really did set the standard. And it's a great report, and in the fact that it identified these 3 important spheres and recognized that one of the most important things you have to recognize is you can't succeed on these issues only focusing on one. It takes all 3: family, work, schools.
We are, to no one's surprise, in the middle of a very contentious election cycle right now. What are some of the things, and I asked the congressman earlier, what are some of the things that Congress and whoever is in this new administration can tackle January 2017?
Well, I think there are a couple ones. One, I think, is there needs to be a further recognition that we need to take advantage of what is getting to be a little tighter labor market and encourage do more to get people into work. The other is young men. It's in this report, and it's very clear in a lot of the statistics. The group that's really left out a lot of the work support, work requirement world we built that provides assistance to make wages go further are young men, and we need to do more there. The President has started some things, but that really, they need to be stronger fathers, stronger employees, and that is really what is the group that's not part of whatever successes we've had. And that, I think, is where Democrats and Republicans could come together on targeted initiatives to help get young, disconnected men into employment.
Jamil, you reacted to that statement just now. What specifically, I mean, your focus is a lot on youth. We're in an era of Black Lives Matter. We're in an era of wokeness for the under 30 crowd. Your reaction to that? I mean, is it really the focus on young men? How do you get youth and this era of Black Lives Matter and activism among young people excited about some of these initiatives?
So thank you for this opportunity. And I was kind of agreeing because some of the thoughts that I wrote down actually speaks to that. So I'm nervous, but at the same time, I was told by, and I appreciate Brother Bridgeland giving me that love, so I want to just be myself, if you don't mind. Before I kind of dive in, hello everybody. You know, I'm a type of person. Oh,
There you go.
So I'm gonna just kind of dive in. You know, as far as I really believe the nation that we're creating, that we're making, is through service, and I want to kind of speak from a perspective of, you know, as much as I advocate for and being once a juvenile to reform the juvenile and criminal justice system, I actually kind of think about the times that I was in front of the DA and in front of the judge, and when they gave me the option or the opportunity whether to go to jail or do the community service, I did the community service. And during these hours, I was introduced to a comprehensive program, Youth Build AmeriCorps, gave me not only structure, but gave me the discipline and the opportunity to be a social change agent. And then as I began to re-engage through service, I found myself finding my sense of purpose. And while doing my tenure there, I would often get frustrated. I would be lost at times because I realized while I was still serving my community and making that transition from the block, I did feel alone. I felt alone when I would go back into the office and kind of talk to different ones in a way where they didn't understand and they didn't quite get it. You know, Jamil, we're not there yet. You know, their funding doesn't allocate that for this particular cause right now. So just continue to serve. And doing that, I was introduced to this phenomenal council. I was actually sponsored by Youth Build AmeriCorps, the National Council of Young Leaders. And we were founded in 2012 in response to the recommendation for the White House Council for Community Solutions. And we were nominated for just being strong change agents within our community by our sponsoring organizations like Youth Build, Advising Corps, Gateway to College, MIGFA Challenge, and National Guard, Berea College, of course, Aspen Institute, Core Network, Philadelphia Youth Network, Year Up. I have to bring all these people to the room because when you see me, you see us, right? So long story short, we all of us, and some of them are here, we all have experienced and suffered all manners of difficulties, including child abuse, rapidly changing and sometimes abusive and neglectful foster care placement, homelessness, traumatic loss, and suffering of family nonsense, whether it be through murder or rest in peace, my mom, she just passed, chronic fatal disease. And I want to kind of pause for a second because my brothers and sisters from the National Council of Young Leaders, OYU, helped me go through that experience. And even when my dad this year has been hard, it relapsed, they actually gave me tools to kind of continue to serve my family. So I want to bring that too, right? So we've experienced discrimination based on our race, ethnicity, gang violence, absence of our fathers through murder, incarceration, drugs, police who stereotyped us and overlooked the rampant drug dealing surrounding us and gave us prison records that I hold to this day for the rest of my life. But look at your neighbor and say, the nation we make. I need you to look at somebody right now in their eyes and say, the nation we make. Real quick, come on, help me out.
Nation we make.
The nation we make. So when it's all said and done, I'm blessed to serve and kind of say as we move forward, serving as a fellow for the Aspen Forum for Community Solutions, taking this charge to be a big brother and develop other young leaders, whether it be through the grassroots organizing Opportunity Youth Incentive Fund, right? But on the flip side, I call it the four corners. You have Op Nation, which I love. Thank you for the opportunity leaders because they give us the tools to inform and instruct as far as the data. So you have Op Nation here. You have the White House. You have the Aspen Forum for Community Solutions here, taking that charge from the White House. You have the National Council of Young Leaders, who actually is the youth voice going into action. But then on the flip side, you have just the people on the ground, the soldiers like myself that may have been at this place of privilege, but at the same time, it's up to us to continue to move on. So in these four corners, focusing on how we move together, the nation we create through service, and to kind of come back to what you said as far as the brothers and the men, we do need that. And shout out to the ladies, because you all are naturers, you all are nurturers, you all have been in the social service field for so long, but we're here to stand with you. Much love, peace and love. Te quiero mucho.
Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you.
It's love, it's love, it's love. Thank you.
I want to call out just a couple of things that Jamil brings up. One is the importance of the youth voice in this conversation, obviously. I mean, the people who are affected by the work that we do and the policies that we put in place need to have a voice both in that work and in those policies. And this is the kind of voice that I think a new administration can help elevate into the conversation nationally. The second piece of this is that Jamil had the chance to work at Youth Build and mentioned some other programs in the same vein. They are work and learn programs so that you can get career development skills and access to social networks and career planning and learn at the same time, so you're getting the degree or the credential that you need in order to be on an upward trajectory in your careers. So those are two pieces that the next administration can really build on to strengthen what we're trying to do in the Opportunity Network and what we're all about here.
What's the importance of, or the role of having a coalition to close this opportunity gap? Because I think, again, a lot of Americans look at what's happening in government and say, no way, that's not possible, it's not realistic. I mean, how do you foresee, with all of these very important points, the 6 points that are in the report, how do you foresee holding whoever is in government accountable to actually making this happen?
I've been in Washington. Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I was going to probably take a different approach than Ron would take. I was just thinking that there is, with us as a coalition of members in the Opportunity Nation Network here, a responsibility to take a shared moral responsibility for the transitions and the links between us. We all have, I think, separate missions. Jobs for the Future is about creating on-ramps for youth and adults into education and careers. We have that kind of slice of the challenge, but we need to link up with others. You're speaking about the importance of creating strong families. We need to, internally as an organization, think about how our work doesn't just create on-ramps, but actually leads to strengthening families. If we buy into the notion, which I believe we do, that that's one of the cornerstones of this effort. And so I think it sits with us as individual organizations with our separate missions. We have our day jobs, but we have to extend ourselves into a sense of shared moral responsibility for something broader than just the activities we're taking on.
Yes.
So it's that piece that I think is critical in a network like this.
And let me add something really quick to that. I've been in Washington 31 years. I worked in the House for many years, and I was in the White House for a year. Nothing gets done in Washington without coalitions, nothing. And I think that there is a real room in this debate for a youth voice, and we often don't get it. So that's a very unique advantage, I think, that Opportunity Nation has, that they can lead with youth voices. And members of Congress will listen to that no matter what their political persuasion is.
And I also would say that it's two realms. There's a Washington realm, and that will be frustrating sometimes and difficult, but progress can be made, and we're laying the groundwork for that in the next administration. But all these things also happen at the local level.
Yeah.
And I'm, in New York City or in Boston or in all across the country, you can do the same thing. I saw it happen in New York, where you put aside the partisan differences and see that basically you agree on a lot of this. Everybody agrees that work matters. Everybody agrees the guys need some help. Everybody agrees that family is important and the kids need two parents actively involved in their lives. So let's work and see how we can move forward and make that happen.
I totally agree, because when it comes to the Opportunity Youth Network, as far as them being a more policy advocate driven, and even with the youth voice, and even coming to the community action teams, one thing as the National Council of Young Leaders, as much as we were advocating, we need it on the ground. So we start developing these community action teams to make sure that we're on the ground as well. But to kind of come back, when it comes to family, like people don't realize it, stay humble, stay focused, Jamil, I tell myself. Because when it's all said and done, my parents, We didn't have, I'm a product of a divorce, and I didn't have a good background. But on the flip side, as they saw me, they were inspired. So it's like we have to invest in these families because for real, at one particular time, like my father used to tell me, he was a pimp by blood. Like it was I was raised to be a womanizer. You see what I'm saying? But when it's, God forgive me, because I have a wife and I love her to this day, but at the same time, I had to become socially conscious of who I was as an individual, inspiring my mother and my father to kind of change their ways and come back. As much as I love it, we have to start figuring out a two-generation approach. So when it's all invested in these families, we're talking about these, you know what I mean? So just going back, so it is right.
We're almost out of time, but I just want to ask this one last question. Why is this plan so urgent today?
Because we have high poverty rates, and to me, way more important, we have less opportunity than we've had in the past. And as you know, Robert and I have both said, and our report says, family and work and education are the keys. And if we can do that now, we can make a big difference. The longer we wait, the more this problem festers. It could get much worse. It could eventually, it could be a cause of social disorder in the United States, especially given the kind of politics that we have in a presidential election.
Some
So I
people
think
would
it's
argue
Right,
we're there.
we're dividing. I mean, the households who have get an education and get a job and postpone having children until they've got a stable family are doing well. And then this other big part of our population of all races, white, black, Hispanic, is not getting a high school education, not getting into work, and having children before they're ready. And that's dividing us. We're living apart. That's not America. We want to be together as a country, not two separate countries.
And I think the solutions to those problems, to the challenges that we face, rest in the people who we need to serve and to raise up their potential to solve them. I mean, these are the solutions right here to the challenges we're describing. And so right now, our work has to be about focusing on youth who are struggling and connecting them to our world so that their potential adds to the solutions that we have available.
All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Great.
Thanks, Jamil. Yeah, good to talk to you.
That was wonderful. I enjoyed that.
Robert.
Was that fun? All right, buddy.